What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here, and today we are going to be showcasing some more amazing community designed exotics for Destiny. Now, this is the only series that lets you submit your exotic weapon or armor, ghost shell artifact, or heck, any Destiny exotic idea and have a chance to have a realistic concept art made for it. Now that's because I've partnered with the artist Benjamin Radiman, who makes these amazingly realistic exotic concepts. His deviant art will be linked in the description down below. So on the docket for today's video, firstly, we are showcasing 5 featured exotic concepts that all came from the comment section of last week's video. Now after that, we are going to talk about the proper way to submit your exotic idea. People still get this wrong, so if you're planning to submit, make sure to stay tuned for that, and also some tips for getting selected. And at the very end of the video, we're going to showcase all of the different concepts that were created this week. But before we start any of that, it's very important to say that firstly, if you enjoy these videos and want to support this series, please remember to rate and especially share this video. It really helps myself and Benjamin out. And secondly, if you're planning to make a submission, we only take the submissions from the newest exotic concepts video. So if there's a newer video than this one, an annotation will pop up right now leading you to it. Furthermore, one more announcement is that this series was in the past every single week. However, we're going to try a bi-weekly change to this series. So the next exotic concepts will be in 2 weeks from now. Now don't fret, that's going to mean that Benjamin gets to make more concepts. So, more people get to submit, we get to have more time to create more concepts, so you actually have probably a better chance of getting picked, and the concepts get to be designed with more time, so they're going to look better, and it's just going to be a little bit easier for him and myself to run this series. Now, after a test phase, we might go back to every week, but just telling you guys, the next one is going to be from 2 weeks from now, and the one after that is likely going to be 2 weeks as well. Now with that being said and done, let's get started here with the featured exotic concepts. First off, with the Helm of Undying Embers, exotic Titan helmet by Zero Torque. Now this is actually, I'm not gonna lie guys, this is, I think, a fantastic idea. I think this is a really cool direction to move in terms of exotic armor. So what we have for the Helm of Undying Embers is a couple of unique exotic perks. Firstly, we have the intrinsic perk Gift of the Risen. Gain bonus grenade and melee energy instead of super energy when picking up orbs of light. Already, good idea, I think. That's a really cool idea, is the orbs of light have traditionally charged your super, and we've had some play on that issue where they give you health, for example, with certain armor pieces, but making it so that they don't recharge your super anymore, which is a huge downside, but instead recharge your grenade and melee. That is going to be really interesting for certain builds that aren't focused on their super, for certain builds that are more focused, perhaps, on their grenades. Very interesting there. Moving on, we have the exotic perk Fan the Flames. While in Hammer of Soul, picking up extra orbs extends Hammer of Soul's duration and grants Cauterize. In brackets, orb generation cap will not change. Again, we have another fantastic idea. So now when you're using your hammers as you're playing a Titan and you pick up orbs, they'll make your hammers last longer. You can throw more hammers, you can do more damage, but as we said, as the description said, you won't actually be able to generate more orbs yourself, because otherwise that would be a little bit imbalanced. Now this concept just seems excellent for PvE focused play. When you're playing PvE, it's just a well-known fact that the orb regeneration is a lot higher than PvP. You're running Night Stalker Hunter, and you can get 7+ orbs from, bowing a bunch of enemies in a row, whereas in PvP, it's almost impossible to get to happen. When you're using your other supers as well, Storm Trance, Fists of Havoc, whatever you're doing, you have a much higher chance to get massive kills with your super and generate a ton of orbs. So just there's going to be a lot more orbs actually being generated in PvE. So that's going to make your grenade and melee charge super fast, and that's going to be very useful. Additionally, this actually is a wombo combo with the artifact that gets rid of your super and replaces it with an extra grenade and melee charge. That plus this regenerating them way faster would just be insane. Like, you'd be able to throw a grenade every 10 seconds, maybe even less. Like, it would be unreal. But also, it would be really useful in PvE if you're not using that artifact, obviously, to be able to pop your hammers, you know, go on a tear, throw a bunch of hammers, and then go and pick up, you know, your Night Stalker allies' orbs, and then regenerate basically all of your hammer and keep going. Again, in PvP, that's very unlikely to happen. There's just not as much orbs. But in PvE, you can extend your hammers massively, and that would be, I just think, so fun to use. Moving on, we have the $1 Million Smile, exotic sniper rifle concept by Dragonfire 5302. Now, this weapon firstly looks pretty crazy, but it also has a few unique perks. Firstly, it has the main perk Scavenger. Glimmer now falls from all enemies, giving different amounts based on the ranking of enemies. So if you kill a boss, it's going to give you much more Glimmer than if you kill a Thrall. This perk only works when you get kills with this weapon, however. Moving on, we have the other exotic perk, $1 Million Smile. Headshots with this weapon have a chance to drop much more Glimmer. Now, I know what you're thinking. Glimmer? When is that ever useful? But actually, quite recently, it's been made a lot more useful. You can now buy weapon and armor parts from the gunsmith for just pure Glimmer, which you can use to, well, upgrade your weapons and armor, but who cares about that? But more importantly, you can just throw it at a faction vendor and level up, you know, Future War Cult really fast, for example. So if this weapon actually had decent base stats for a sniper rifle as well, I could actually see myself whipping this out every once in a while for strikes to just farm the crap out of Glimmer. And this would of course stack with other consumables. If you're playing against Hive, you could bust out the consumable that makes Hive drop more Glimmer when killed, and you can just like spend all your Glimmer buying armor parts and then do a strike and get it all back like instantly. That would actually be kind of sweet as a farming tool for getting those weapon and armor parts. Again, not the most insane idea. Farming Glimmer isn't necessarily the most exciting, but actually useful enough that I would potentially be using this. Now, next up, we have the Crimson Priest, exotic Titan helmet concept by Slick111. This is actually a really interesting idea here. The exotic perk is Divine Cleansing, and what it does is that stepping inside your Ward of Dawn cleanses status effects. So damage over time effects, like if you're hit by the Thorn, suppression effects, blinding effects, if you're on fire, any of that, when you step in the Ward of Dawn, it's going to stop those immediately. So already pretty decent. It also begins your health regeneration. So you're not going to get a massive amount of health immediately, but you will start regenerating health. So quite useful off the bat. But it's going to disable the Armor of Light and Blessings of Light perks. So you have to use Weapons of Light with this. Now, that's actually pretty interesting. We've never had something disable other perks as an armor piece like ever in Destiny. We've never had anything say you can't use this perk when using this armor piece. And I think that's actually not a bad idea. It would let Bungie potentially be more creative with their ideas without having to worry about something being overpowered with a combination. Like, you could come up with pretty awesome concepts for armor that works with Defender, but it might be overpowered with Blessing of Light, for example. We'll just make it so that you can't use Blessing of Light when you're using a certain exotic. There, problem solved. And again, that opens the window, it opens the door to creativity. This, I think, would actually be a really, really good exotic when I think about it. Like, I would use this all the time when playing Defender, especially within the raid. Like, the Wrath of the Machine raid, because you're using weapons of light already. Like, you want to use weapons of light. Very useful for increasing your damage output, obviously. But the downside of weapons is, of course, that you don't have a ton of defensive features aside from actually just going within the bubble and then stuff can't shoot you. But it's very easy for a captain to just follow you into your bubble and punch you right in the mouth when you were trying to survive. This would really help that. This adds a little bit of a degree of survivability to your bubble for weapons of light. Now, mostly people are just popping their bubbles when they're engaging bosses in the Wrath of the Machine, but this would also let you pop your bubble when you're getting just destroyed by adds and use it a little bit more defensively and get a bonus for doing so, beginning health regeneration and making sure, you know, if you're on fire, you're blinded or whatever, that's going to go away, while still, of course, remaining a great way to increase your damage output. I can seriously see, if this exotic helmet was introduced into Destiny tomorrow, a ton of people purposely running it when doing Wrath of the Machine if they're already planning on playing a Defender Titan. Now moving on, we have the Iron Epilogue, exotic auto rifle concept by Sean Conboy. Now this weapon does have a few unique perks. Firstly, intrinsically, it has solar damage. Pretty cool, actually. I would love to see more, even if they're just exotic, more elemental primaries. We have the Xylo Supercell. Why can't we have some other stuff as well? Now, on top of that, we have some exotic perks. Firstly, in the main perk slot, we have Iron Fury. Getting 3 quick consecutive kills with this weapon speeds up handling and reload for a short period. So, that's totally fine. Obviously, most often going to come up in PvE engagements, but being able to, you know, pump some rounds into some thralls or some acolytes, get that quick triple kill and be able to reload very fast to engage the next group of enemies, and also speeding up handling as well, is just overall useful. Just useful. Moving on, we have the exotic perk, Lord's Legacy. When your health is critically low, there is a chance, about a 1/3 chance, that you will be imbued with the aspect of iron, granting you a temporary overshield and increasing damage at the cost of a portion of your super energy, about 1/3 of it. So, that's pretty unique. When you're just about to die, when your health is critical, there's a 1/3 chance that you get an overshield. Now, it doesn't have to be as powerful as the traditional overshield. It doesn't have to be as powerful as, you know, a Scorch melee overshield, for example. But some sort of overshield will be gained, potentially when you are critically wounded. So this is, again, a very interesting idea. I would love to get your guys' opinion on this gun, because on the one hand, it doesn't actually sound that overpowered. There's only a chance of it happening, and it doesn't seem any more BS than something like a Scorch melee, bringing you back from the brink of death. However, on the other hand, this would be incredibly annoying to play against. Like, I would absolutely hate playing people using this weapon and getting them to where they're almost dead and then they get that stupid overshield and then beat me when I was supposed to win that gunfight. So again, on the one hand, looking at it objectively doesn't seem that overpowered. On the other hand, it could potentially be incredibly annoying to play against. With all that being said, it is very unique, and if you could somehow find a way to maybe only activate this against minions of the darkness, it would then be a very usable PvE friendly gun. But in PvP, there are definitely some concerns. Again, not necessarily even with overpoweredness, just with annoyance. Now moving on, the last weapon we're going to cover today is the Clay Nemesis, exotic shotgun concept by Brian. Now this of course is a play on the Nemesis Star. Now the Nemesis Star is the currently only Nadir, like properly Nadir foundry weapon in the game. So yes, this does look quite a bit like the Nemesis Star, but it is the only thing we have to go off of when we're talking about Nadir weapons. And I actually think like the shotgun version of this actually looks pretty damn cool. I would love to see more Nadir weapons. Now moving on, this weapon does have a few unique perks. Firstly, it has the main perk Birdshot. Increases the number of pellets that the shotgun shoots, but reduces the damage per pellet. So again, this wouldn't necessarily increase damage output by anything noticeable, maybe just by a tiny bit, but it's mainly just going to make you actually shoot more pellets, just physically more pellets, but each of those pellets is doing less damage to compensate, so obviously it's not incredibly overpowered. This is also going to have the exotic perk Pull, Lead, Shoot. Increases range and damage against airborne enemies while aiming down sights. Now, I actually really like this concept for several reasons. Firstly, the birdshot perk is actually a lot better than you'd think. It increases the consistency a ton. With traditional shotguns in the game, sometimes you shoot an enemy basically point blank. Like, we're not talking about Matador 64 ridiculousness here. We're talking about like totally fair shotgun engagement distances where you shoot an enemy and you somehow don't kill them. Like, for whatever reason, all of your pellets went to the side of your spread, like it just missed more pellets than it should have, and you didn't get that kill. Increasing the amount of pellets is going to reduce the, I guess, randomness that does come inherently with using a shotgun, and that is a good thing. Just more pellets overall is going to lessen the chances of that happening. It's just going to make this shotgun more consistent, especially in PvP. Also, the exotic perk, I think, is pretty damn good. We have a little bit of an ode to the universal remote when we have a little bit more range when aiming down sights. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that, as long as it's not like absurd range. Getting a range bonus for aiming down sights, for performing the task of aiming down sights, is, I think, nothing ridiculous. And then more damage against airborne targets, that's pretty decent as well. Again, that's not necessarily going to let you win, every gunfight in PvP, but it is going to give you a slight advantage when you have those people who just press the jump button as soon as they get into engagement. Those people are kind of annoying anyway, so doing a little bit more damage against them isn't the worst thing in my opinion. It's really all about balance. If we had this thing being a Matador 64 from the start and then getting these perks, it would be ridiculously overpowered. But if it was fair and balanced in its starting stats and then got these perks, it would just be a very effective exotic shotgun that wouldn't be overpowered in the slightest. And that is going to wrap up the 5 featured exotics for this week. Now let's talk about how to properly submit your exotic idea. All you need to do is simply reply to the comment I'm going to leave in the comment section of this video down below. So I'm going to make a comment saying reply here with your exotic idea and simply do so. Those comments are going to be the only place we look for ideas. Putting it just normally in the comment section, on Twitter, emailing me, none of those are counted. Now, the original comment will fill up with the 500 reply limit pretty quickly, and I will be there to put thread number 2 in as quickly as I can. Hit me up on Twitter if you can't find it. But also look more than 1 second. Sometimes Google shifts up the comments, and so just make sure to refresh and spend a little bit of extra time looking for that thread number 2, because it's often there and then people say it's not. It's just Google shifting things around. Moving on, some tips for getting selected. Firstly, try to make sure that your idea is realistic for Destiny. Getting a kill and transforming into a dragon is never going to happen. Secondly, try to make sure you self-balance and self-regulate your idea. Getting a kill and instantly getting an overshield or having insane damage increases is probably just not going to be balanced. You have to think of PvE and PvP when coming up with your concept. Also, try to make sure your idea isn't overly complicated. If you have paragraphs and paragraphs explaining what your idea does, or every single perk is unique and it would take me 10 minutes to explain your weapon, you're just not going to get selected. But with all that being said, don't be afraid to completely break the traditional, concepts we currently have in game. Don't think you have to make auto rifles, scout rifles, and stuff we already have in the game. You are more than welcome to make SMGs, laser rifles, all of that stuff when designing a concept. And lastly, let's shout out all of the different exotic concepts created from last week. Firstly, we have the Archon's Will, exotic sidearm concept by Bantosaurus 101. Moving on, we have the Dark World Plate, exotic Titan chest concept by Eric Smith. After that, we have the Gunganir exotic sniper rifle concept by Mr. Shinigami. Next, we have the Lucky Dog exotic auto rifle concept by Stephen Bills. And lastly, we have the Shard of the Traveler exotic artifact concept by TG Hibiki. Alright guys, now that's gonna wrap up the video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please remember to help this series out by again rating and especially sharing this video. If you want to see more Destiny content from me and don't want to miss out on the next episode of Fan-Made Exotics, make sure to slap that subscribe button. Additionally, if you want to get in touch with me, tell me thread number 1 is full. The best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.